General Introduction to Sex Education. Introduction. In a rapidly changing world, where children and adolescents increasingly access information from various sources, including the internet, social media, mass media, and peer groups, it is crucial to equip them with a solid foundation of knowledge about sexuality. Sex education is not merely about teaching sexual intercourse or anatomy. It is a comprehensive educational process that helps individuals better understand themselves, their relationships with others, human diversity, and core values such as respect, consent, and responsibility. Globally, approaches to sex education vary significantly, reflecting differences in culture, tradition, religion, and public policy. Some countries have implemented comprehensive sex education programs starting in primary school, emphasizing mental health, emotional development, communication skills, and mutual respect. Conversely, many places still avoid or only superficially address the topic, restricting it to medical or moral frameworks. When implemented properly, comprehensive sex education not only helps reduce risks such as unintended pregnancies, sexually transmitted infections, or gender-based violence, but also contributes to raising a generation that understands personal boundaries, knows their rights and those of others, and can build healthy, respectful relationships. It also plays a key role in challenging persistent stereotypes, prejudices, and rigid gender norms that continue to exist in many societies. In the context of globalization and increasing interconnectedness, the demand for progressive, scientific, and humanistic sex education is becoming more evident. Investing in sex education is, ultimately, an investment in a safer, more equitable, and more inclusive future for generations to come. Part 1. The importance of early sex education. Introduction. In an increasingly interconnected and information-rich world, young people are exposed to messages about gender, sexuality, and relationships at ever earlier ages. Whether through media, peers, or online platforms, children inevitably encounter fragments of information, often misleading or incomplete, about their bodies and identities. Against this backdrop, comprehensive sex education from an early age is not only beneficial but essential. It equips children with the knowledge, attitudes, and skills to navigate their development safely and confidently. It also lays a foundation for healthier relationships, greater respect for diversity, and stronger emotional resilience. Unfortunately, in many communities, sex education is delayed, stigmatized, or reduced to fear-based warnings about pregnancy and disease. This narrow approach overlooks the deeper developmental, emotional, and social benefits of early sex education. A truly holistic strategy considers age-appropriate learning stages, addresses a child's evolving sense of self, and includes parents, educators, and society as co-nurturers of well-being. 1. What is sex education? 1.1 Defining sex education. Sex education is commonly misunderstood as merely the teaching of sexual intercourse or contraception. However, its true definition is far broader and more nuanced. Sex education is the lifelong process of acquiring information and forming attitudes, beliefs, and values about identity, relationships, intimacy, and gender. It encompasses the physical, emotional, mental, and social aspects of human sexuality. A comprehensive approach includes anatomy and physiology, reproduction and contraception, gender identity and expression, emotional development and mental health, consent, boundaries, and communication, relationships, love, and respect, safety, abuse prevention, and rights. The objective is not to encourage sexual activity, but to foster understanding, empathy, and empowerment. A well-informed child is more likely to make responsible decisions, recognize harmful situations, and seek help when needed. 1.2 Sex education versus sexual instruction. It is crucial to distinguish between sex education and sexual instruction. Sexual instruction is often a one-dimensional, biological explanation focused on reproduction, puberty, or disease prevention. It tends to be clinical and often leaves out emotional, social, or ethical dimensions. Sex education, on the other hand, explores a broader spectrum of human experiences, including values, identity, power dynamics, and emotions. It supports children's development into respectful, Self-aware individuals capable of forming healthy connections. 2. Benefits of starting early. Introducing sex education from a young age is not about teaching children how to have sex. Instead, it's about helping them understand their bodies, feelings, boundaries, and relationships in age-appropriate, safe, and respectful ways. When done right, early sex education offers powerful protective and developmental benefits. 2.1 Understanding the body and personal boundaries. One of the earliest and most important lessons in sex education is teaching children the correct names for body parts and helping them understand that their bodies belong to them. When children are able to accurately describe their anatomy and express discomfort, they are less likely to be targets of sexual abuse, more likely to report inappropriate behavior, better equipped to set and respect boundaries. Using euphemisms or avoiding the topic can leave children confused, ashamed, or unaware of what is appropriate. Teaching terms like penis, vagina, chest, or private parts in a neutral and factual way helps normalize body awareness and safety. 2.2 Developing self-protection and safety skills. Early sex education plays a vital role in abuse prevention. Children who understand the concepts of consent, even in simple terms, like, you have the right to say no, safe versus unsafe touch, trusted adults they can talk to, are more likely to protect themselves and speak up. Programs that incorporate safety training, e.g. the no, go, tell strategy, help children respond appropriately to situations of potential abuse. Furthermore, when these conversations are normalized early, children are less likely to internalize shame or fear around their bodies, which can otherwise prevent them from seeking help. 2.3 Building confidence and positive self-image. Children are constantly forming beliefs about themselves, including their gender, capabilities, and self-worth. Early sex education, when inclusive and affirming, can encourage body positivity and acceptance, validate gender identity and reduce confusion or stigma, boost self-esteem by promoting open and respectful communication. A child who learns, my body is okay, my feelings are valid, and I deserve respect, is more likely to grow up with emotional resilience and the ability to form respectful relationships. 2.4 Supporting emotional and social development. Sex education also contributes to the development of emotional intelligence, EQ, especially when taught through discussions about feelings and how to express them, empathy and respect for others' boundaries, navigating friendships and crushes. These are foundational skills for forming and maintaining healthy relationships throughout life, romantic, platonic, familial, or professional. Children learn to understand not just their own feelings, but how their actions affect others. 2.5 Preventing risky behavior later in life. Multiple studies show that early, accurate sex education does not increase sexual activity, as many parents fear. In fact, the opposite is true. Teens who receive sex education early are more likely to delay sexual activity. They are more likely to use contraception when they do become sexually active. They are less likely to experience unintended pregnancy or sexually transmitted infections, STIs. By addressing these topics before misinformation spreads through peers or media, early education helps children grow into teens who make informed, responsible decisions. 3. Developmental stages and age-appropriate content. One of the biggest challenges in implementing effective sex education is knowing what to teach and when. The content must be tailored to a child's cognitive, emotional, and social development. A 5-year-old and a 15-year-old have very different needs and levels of understanding. This section breaks down the appropriate content by developmental stage, showing how sex education evolves over time and remains relevant throughout a child's growth. 3.1 Preschool, ages 3 to 5, Foundation and Safety. At this early stage, sex education is not about reproduction, but about body awareness, safety, and communication. Children in this age group are naturally curious about their bodies and the differences between themselves and others. Instead of shutting down their curiosity, adults can respond with honesty and simplicity. Key concepts: correct names for body parts, e.g. penis, vulva, nipples, understanding that some body parts are private, personal boundaries, my body belongs to me, safe versus unsafe touch, how to say no and when to seek help. Identifying trusted adults. Teaching style. Use storybooks, songs, and role-playing. Keep language simple and respectful. Avoid shame-based responses to curiosity. 3.2 Early primary school, ages 6 to 8, emotions and differences. At this stage, children begin to understand more about gender roles, relationships, and emotions. They may ask more complex questions or encounter peer discussions about love and attraction. Key concepts. Respecting differences between people, including gender, family structures, and culture. Introduction to emotional vocabulary. Identifying and expressing feelings. Revisiting consent and body safety in more nuanced ways. Understanding private behaviors and public spaces. Reinforcement of personal boundaries. Teaching style. Interactive games, drawing, group discussions. Encourage children to ask questions and build emotional awareness alongside body knowledge. 3.3 Late primary school, ages 9 to 11, puberty preparation. As children approach puberty, their bodies begin to change, often before formal education addresses it. Preparing them early reduces anxiety and builds confidence. Key concepts. Physical changes during puberty, menstruation, erections, breast development, voice changes, hygiene and self-care routines. Emotional changes, mood swings, developing attractions, reproduction basics and introduction to menstruation, sperm. Continued reinforcement of boundaries, consent, and safety. Online safety and understanding digital boundaries, e.g. not sharing images. Teaching style. Use age-appropriate anatomical diagrams, videos, and Q&A sessions. Normalize all bodies and changes as natural and healthy. 3.4 Middle school, ages 12 to 14, identity and relationships. This is a critical window for sex education, as most young people are now experiencing puberty or are curious about romantic and sexual feelings. They're also more influenced by peers and media. Key concepts. Consent, communication, and mutual respect in relationships. Understanding gender identity, expression, and sexual orientation. Media literacy. Challenging stereotypes and unrealistic portrayals of love, sex. Preventing peer pressure and recognizing manipulation or coercion. Basics of contraception and STI prevention, introduced gradually. Emotional health and navigating first relationships. Teaching style. Interactive discussions, scenario analysis, anonymous question boxes, media analysis. Provide safe space for questions without judgment. 3.5 High school, ages 15 to 18, decision-making and responsibility. Teens at this age are making more independent choices and may begin engaging in romantic or sexual relationships. Sex education must prepare them with both factual knowledge and critical thinking skills. Key concepts. In-depth understanding of contraception and STI prevention. Healthy versus unhealthy relationships. Sexual consent, power dynamics, and laws related to age of consent. Pregnancy options and reproductive rights. LGBTQ+ inclusion and respect. Emotional and mental aspects of intimacy and love. Setting personal values and boundaries. Teaching style. Workshops, small group discussions, case studies, and values clarification exercises. Include real-life scenarios and promote reflection, not just information delivery. Conclusion to Section 3. Sex education must grow with the child. Just as we don't teach algebra to preschoolers or road safety to infants. We must respect the cognitive and emotional development of learners. When properly sequenced and integrated, sex education becomes a lifelong learning process, one that empowers children and teens at every stage. 4. Sex education and holistic development. Sex education is often viewed narrowly, focused on biology or risk prevention, but when approached holistically, it supports a child's overall development across emotional, cognitive, social, and even academic dimensions. A well-designed sex education curriculum not only informs but also strengthens the core capacities that children and teens need to thrive in all areas of life. 4.1 The link between sex education and emotional intelligence, EQ. Emotional intelligence, EQ, the ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions, plays a major role in mental well-being, communication, and decision-making. Sex education actively nurtures EQ by helping students identify and name their feelings, understand emotional changes during puberty, empathize with others' perspectives and boundaries, manage conflict in friendships and romantic relationships, express affection, anger, and sadness in appropriate ways. When students learn about feelings in the context of relationships, identity, and communication, they become better equipped to build meaningful, respectful connections. 4.2 Enhancing self-awareness and self-confidence. Sex education provides a structured space for self-reflection and self-discovery. When students learn about anatomy, body diversity, and identity without judgment or shame, they gain a stronger sense of bodily autonomy, build a positive body image, learn to value and assert their boundaries, reduce confusion about gender roles and sexual orientation. These benefits ripple outward. Confident children are more likely to speak up, seek help when needed, and resist peer pressure. 4.3 Supporting cognitive and academic growth. Although it may seem unrelated, sex education positively impacts academic performance. Students who feel safe, respected, and emotionally supported are better able to focus, manage stress, and engage with learning. Research shows that schools with comprehensive sex education programs see improvements in school climate and reduced bullying, attendance and engagement, fewer behavior problems and disciplinary issues. When students are not preoccupied with confusion, fear, or social drama stemming from misinformation, they are more present and participatory in all subjects. 4.4 Building social skills and healthy peer relationships. Sex education enhances key interpersonal skills, including active listening and clear communication, respecting diversity in opinions, identities, and cultures, establishing and maintaining healthy friendships, navigating peer pressure and group dynamics. These skills are essential for life, not just romantic relationships. They promote inclusion, reduce bullying, and foster cooperation both in and out of the classroom. 4.5 Preventing violence and promoting safe environments. Sex education helps prevent various forms of interpersonal violence, including sexual harassment, gender-based bullying, dating violence, exploitation and coercion. By discussing concepts such as consent, mutual respect, and nonviolent communication, students become agents of positive change in their schools and communities. When children and teens understand what constitutes inappropriate behavior, and how to report it, they are more empowered to stand up for themselves and others. 4.6 Promoting long-term well-being. Beyond school years, comprehensive sex education contributes to long-term life satisfaction. It equips individuals to form loving, respectful partnerships, make informed reproductive choices, and foster environments of openness and equality. In short, sex education doesn't exist in isolation. It is deeply connected to who we are, how we feel, how we relate to others, and how we shape the world around us. A child who receives this education early and consistently is far more likely to grow into an adult who is compassionate, confident, and responsible. 5. The role of early sex education in preventing social issues. Sex education is not only a personal developmental tool, it's a form of social intervention. By providing young people with accurate knowledge and life skills, early sex education plays a preventative role in a range of societal challenges. From gender-based violence to teen pregnancy and discrimination, when implemented effectively, it supports healthier communities, stronger families, and safer environments for all. 5.1 Preventing sexual abuse and exploitation. One of the most urgent and well-documented benefits of early sex education is the prevention of sexual abuse. Children who learn the following concepts early are significantly less vulnerable. My body belongs to me. The difference between appropriate and inappropriate touch. How to say no, and how to tell a trusted adult. Recognizing manipulative behavior or grooming. Without these tools, many children either do not recognize abuse or feel too ashamed to report it. Early education fosters openness, clarity, and the normalization of speaking up about uncomfortable experiences. 5.2 Reducing teenage pregnancy. Teen pregnancy often results from a combination of poor access to information, lack of contraception, and social pressure. Evidence from countries with strong sex education programs, like the Netherlands, Germany, and Sweden, shows that comprehensive early sex education correlates with lower teen pregnancy rates. Teens make more informed decisions and are more likely to delay sexual activity. Contraceptive use increases when youth understand their options and how to access them. In contrast, abstinence-only programs or late-stage interventions tend to result in higher rates of unintended pregnancy. 5.3 Preventing the spread of sexually transmitted infections, STIs. Early and consistent sex education demystifies STIs and promotes safer behaviors. Key strategies include teaching the biological facts without fear or shame, promoting condom use and regular testing, encouraging honest communication between partners. The earlier these habits are introduced, long before sexual debut, the more normalized and responsible sexual health becomes. It's about laying the groundwork for lifelong prevention and care. 5.4 Combating gender stereotypes and discrimination. Rigid gender roles and stereotypes contribute to discrimination, violence, and emotional distress, especially for girls and LGBTQ+ youth. Through early sex education, children can begin to question harmful social norms, understand that interests, emotions, and roles aren't determined by gender, develop respect for gender diversity and equality. This doesn't only benefit marginalized groups, it also allows boys and young men to express vulnerability, seek help, and escape toxic masculinity pressures. 5.5 Reducing bullying and school violence. A well-rounded sex education curriculum promotes inclusivity, empathy, and emotional regulation, all of which help reduce bullying based on appearance, gender, or sexuality, verbal harassment and exclusion, physical or sexual violence in schools. Programs that incorporate discussions around identity, respect, and social skills help shift school culture towards safety and inclusion for everyone. 5.6 Addressing mental health and shame. In many cultures, sex and the body are sources of shame and silence. This can lead to low self-esteem, anxiety and depression, guilt or fear around natural feelings and desires. Sex education that is open, respectful, and inclusive helps dismantle shame. It creates space for honest conversation, normalizes emotional development, and supports mental well-being. 5.7 Creating a more informed and responsible society. Finally, early sex education shapes the kind of society we become. A generation that understands consent, respects differences, and values emotional well-being will be less prone to gender-based violence, more supportive of reproductive rights and bodily autonomy, better equipped to handle conflict, intimacy, and diversity. It's not just about avoiding problems, it's about building better futures. Conclusion of Part 1. Early sex education is more than a protective measure, it is a foundation for life. When we start young, with the right messages, in the right way, we raise children who are confident in their identity, secure in their relationships, and capable of contributing to a healthier, more just society. Delaying or avoiding these conversations does not shield children from the world, it leaves them unprepared to face it.